All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lasting Learning Podcast. Today is going to be a fun episode because I've got a guest here who is combining a lot of my personal interests and passions. We're talking AI, we're talking leadership, we're talking reading, we're talking education, we're talking problems and solutions. We're bringing it all to the table. We are going to unpack some things. We're going to talk little bit about him and his journey, but we're also going to be talking about kids in America and really around the world today and how he has a solution to try to move them forward. So today I am so excited to introduce you to Dr. Phil Hickman. If you don't know who he is, Dr. Phil is not that Dr. Phil. He's the real Dr. Phil, the Dr. Phil that really brings truth and answers to our world. So Phil, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So, people that might not have heard you or seen you or know much about you, unpack a little bit for us because I know that you've got some major education credibility here. You've got some street cred. You've walked the walk. You've talked the talk. You've done the work, but other people might not know who you are. So let's just fill them in on that real quick.
Dave, yeah, my education journey, I have 5 graduate degrees and a doctorate. I did everything in the field of education from substitute teacher, assistant teacher, to a teacher of special education. I was a school psychologist, a counselor. I was a principal at all levels, so K through high school, and assistant principal. Then I was a director of education. I was a area superintendent in Houston, Texas, which I had 300 schools, 210,000 students. In that time, I also started a charter school in Kansas City, Missouri. I co-founded the start of a charter school. And then I went on to be a superintendent as well in areas like Mississippi. And I did a lot of work in areas of Chicago, Kansas City, Houston, Mississippi. And then I was a national ambassador for United States Department of Education. And during that journey, worked with Apple and Amazon, and then also worked for Oracle. And then I developed and became the CEO and founder of Playbook, which is the innovative reading technology that uses artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and speech recognition. But I like to say my real origin story kind of happened as I fumbled through early education.
Hmm.
I didn't know that I had dyslexic, and that I was dyslexic, and my teachers didn't know. Obviously, it wasn't really a popular thing, and so I was a struggling reader. And if again, I always like to say we know the statistics of what happens if a child's not reading by third grade. We right now we currently have 75% of our students in fourth grade reading below grade level, which leads to a high dropout rate. We have high schools that are considered dropout factories where they're only graduating, 50% of their student. And then, of course, we know that 82% of prison inmates have a reading impairment that has never been corrected. And we know that 73% of high school, 73% of crime created in the United States created by high school dropouts. So I was a struggling reader in third grade. And it took my grandmother, who actually, her name was Ruby, she actually sat down with me one-to-one and actually taught me how to read in a way that made sense. My grandfather actually was illiterate. And so during that process, um, she taught me how to read in fourth grade, and she later passed away on my fifth grade birthday. But she gave me a gift, and that gift, it allowed me to gain access to education. But the other funny thing is, I went to actually a pretty good school, Raytown South in Kansas City, Missouri, and I remember my freshman year in high school, we had typewriter class, like literally typewriters. And then all of a sudden, our sophomore year, we had computers. And I left out something before that. I had to go to summer school, and my brother and sister are going to hate me for this, but I have two. I have an older brother and sister, and they had to go to summer school, and so of course I couldn't stay home by myself. So I was I was in middle school at the time. I had to join them at a high school summer school, and I actually took a computer course. It was Microsoft DOS, blue
Hmm.
screen, and they were actually teaching us how to code back then, which it wasn't the coding that we know now. So I'm saying is that was my love, my exposure and love for technology that I later end up picking up through my pursuit of education.
Oh, so great.
But yeah, oh yeah.
Well, I think you have earned the credibility of the listeners when you said that you've done all the things. you've done all the things, right?
Everything.
You've been on the grassroots level. You've been in the trenches, to leading, to working with students, to parents, to educators, technology, all the things. You've been in the bureaucracy. You've been in politics. Literally all the things. So you can understand this perspective, right? You can
Yes, sir.
understand um, all lenses to this problem. And the problem, as you identified it, is the pipeline that we have created in a lot of systems, where we tend to
Right.
sort and select kids from those who can to those who can't, and those that can't, however we want to frame that, tend to stay in that camp, in that category, with that label throughout their entire educational journey into adulthood, and then into the prisons or the grave. And it sounds to me
Right.
like you identified this. You said, I can either perpetuate this, I can go and continue to be a cog in this wheel, or I can try to put a stop to this, try to get to what I perceive to be a root of the problem, and put a solution in place. Is that
Yes,
a
sir.
good summary of it?
A great summary of it, and actually that kind of depicts even my career. It was, wait a minute, as a tutor, as a sub, I was only affecting a small amount of students.
Mm,
As a teacher, it was my classroom. As an assistant principal, it was only only dealt with the behavior kids. As a principal, it was only the students in my building, and I felt like I had a gift. And as a superintendent, it was only my district. And then when I worked for the United States Department of Education, I was, able to look at policies and stuff nationwide, but I still saw the gap. I mean,
yeah,
everywhere I went, students were struggling to read. And the not so funny thing is, so America has to pay attention now because it's 75% of students. So that's regardless of social economical status, whether you're poor or rich. That's regardless of race. That's regardless of anything. We're doing something wrong where we're affecting students' growth so much that it's pervasive. It's nationwide. 75% of all students are reading below grade level, and that wasn't my research. That's
yeah,
a research work. And by the way, that was right before COVID, so that COVID slide affected it even more. So it's think about it. I mean, it's actually to me a level of national security.
for sure.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. People that have listened to me talking, have listened to this podcast for years, know that I'm probably going to take the bait on some of the stuff that you're saying right now. So I'm gonna go there, and then we'll come back to the solution here. So,
uh-oh.
about 8 years ago, my first book came out. Okay, and the original title for my first book was "I Don't Care If My Kids Read." Okay, my publisher said, "Oh, Dave, we can't publish that. That kind of goes against what we're trying to do." So we changed the title and changed the metaphor throughout, and it's called "It's Like Riding a Bike." And the idea is to take learning and make sure that learning is applicable and relevant to kids. But the basic purpose behind that story, and a lot of what I say, is that oftentimes in school we use kids not being able to read as this barrier, saying because they can't read, they can't learn. And because they can't learn, they'll never succeed, as opposed to saying, how can we work around that? How can we either
Hmm.
teach that skill or introduce new tools to them so they can
Right.
continue to learn? Like right now, we're doing a podcast because, yeah, we could sit down and we could write this out and send it to everybody in a long email, but we're trying to put it in people's heads and let them listen to it and ponder it so they can learn it in a different way. But
Right.
you also understand that reading is a tool to help kids, it is a tool to
Yes.
help move people forward.
Yeah, but
So,
but we actually been doing it wrong. Like that's the issue.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
you said, do you know that the research actually says, and this is scientific, 95% of all students should be reading on grade level if given the correct instruction and instructional tools.
100%.
95%.
95%. Yep. But we
Only
hear, but
5% should be struggling readers.
right, but we hear statistics, and we see the MTSS pyramids and the RTI pyramids that talk about the 60 20 10, all of those sorts of things, right? Or the 80 10 5, whatever the case may be. 95% if we do it the right way.
Yeah,
So that
we
would
need to take responsibility.
so what I'm hearing from you then is when we have 75% who aren't reading at grade level, but 95% should be, if we're doing it the right way, one could simply connect those dots and say, so we're not doing it the right way.
Yes, sir. Well, here's an example. Here's the difference between my tool playbook, PLABOOK, and I know people say, "What? Why are you talking about reading and you
You can't spell
misspell
it correct. Yeah.
it?" No, it's actually a multisyllabic word, so the vowel can scream its name.
Mm.
and that's just how complicated the English is. And
Yeah.
by the way, reading is rocket science. It's actually taking two parts of the brain. It's nothing that's genetic about reading.
Mhm.
Everybody thinks you're supposed to, walk, talk, and then you read, and that's not true. You're taking two parts of the brain that are not designed to look at pictures without sound and voice, and you're mixing the two, and you're rewiring your brain in order to learn how to read. But here's an example of what I just something real simple. So all of our assessments and anything that drives our so-called instruction, we quietly have a child read a paragraph and answer multiple choice questions. Based off that, we say if a child can read or not. That's actually only reading comprehension. Reading only has 5 sections. Reading comprehension is one of them. You have vocabulary, phonemic awareness, phonics, and then fluency. That's the only thing that we've been assessing for all this time. Where playbook, we actually can hear the child read, and not only can we hear the child, we can actually our speech engine outperforms Google, Amazon, Alexa, all of those because we can hear all the way down to the phonemic level, the unit of speech. So for instance, if a child reads the word bat, we actually can hear b, at, or the lack thereof. So our assessments go all the way down to the unit of speech and covers all 5 areas of reading, and we can prescribe using AI. We can diagnose and prescribe exactly what pathway, learning path a student should be on, and then also provide resources to the teachers and the students at the same time. But again, if the one of the main problems of a child not being able to read is decoding, they spend more time trying to break down words than they put all that energy to there where they cannot understand it. So if we're only assessing reading comprehension, that's the only thing that we can say is that child does not comprehend. Now, if I talk to the child personally, this child is very smart. I can hear, this child can comprehend everything that I'm saying. But once you put print in front of them, that's the real issue. And so, unless we have tools that accurately diagnose that, then there's no way that we're doing the right intervention to help a student be able to read.
Mm, So you're preaching right now. Okay. I love it. Number one, you're putting some stuff in front of us to think about and to ponder. You talk about the 5 key components of reading. Right now, we're talking specifically reading the English language, which we can maybe go a different direction some other time. But right now, we're talking about reading English, the 5 key components. We talked about comprehension being one. Comprehension is something that tends to be assessed in greater complexity beginning 3rd grade in most states. But in order to be able to start comprehending the text, you're saying that they have to be able to start pulling meaning from the text. They have to start be able to take the symbols, transfer them into sounds that they can then interpret into some sort of comprehensible something, whether it's a
Exactly.
sound, a letter, a pattern, a diaphragm, whatever it is, a digraph. Um, those are skills, however, that tend to be, if we're talking about grade level, tend to be skills that we focus on in early childhood, pre-K, K, 1, 2. If you were to pinpoint and say that's where we're missing that's why we have so many kids not reading at grade level, would you say it's because of our pre-K through 2nd grade instructional methods, curriculum resources that's taking place, or is it a bigger problem than that?
Well, the same research from Education Weekly, um, what they also realize is that, from self-report, 86% of teachers didn't know how to teach correctly reading.
Hmm.
And so, one, that it wasn't correctly taught in the universities. Two, then most teachers learn how to teach reading through on-the-job training.
Mm.
So not even professional development, not even like I said, the university, but from other colleagues who are doing it wrong. So even if you think of things like whole language learning, where you have people teach students read and look at picture cues, like that's incorrect,
Mm.
because when there are no more pictures, which we know pictures start to go away, and you don't have those cues, and you cannot break down a word, you don't understand the phonemic breakdown or phonics, you don't have those foundational skills, then and you're not a fluent reader, then that's a problem. And then you say, I think even I heard one of the things that you said. You asked the importance of reading, or what,
Mm-hmm.
why do I care if my child's reading? Well, let me tell you, in 2030, 2035, whatever, people want to argue over, they say that 85% of jobs that will exist have not been created yet, but they will have an aspect of technology and reading fluency. I mean, we know that that little black box in your hand, we know that that can give you any right now. We're not even we don't have to worry about the future. Chat
Sure.
GBT already proved that that little black box in your hand can give you any information. You have
Mhm.
access to any information, but can you critically read through it and apply it? See, that's the issue. So, because you're going to get bad information as well.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to create, and your job as a human is not going to be the automated, skills because robots and technology and AI is going to be able to do those things. It's going to be your ability to be creative. That's makes you a human to critically think through things, to communicate appropriately, and then to also apply. And so, if you don't have those skill sets that deal with comprehension that deal with being able to go higher level thinking than just factual comprehension, which goes all the way back to because comprehension is the end point of reading. It goes back to reading fluently. In order to read fluently, you have to be able to have those skills automatic that you can look at a word and it's automatic that you break that word phonemically down and able to produce it. People also argue and they say, well, your tool, you're reading out loud into a tool and you're really looking at oral reading fluency. And then I question them. I say, I want you to tell me whenever in life you have read something and never heard your voice. You've never read out loud in your head. Matter of fact, try it. You don't. You are reading orally in your head as you read. And so that's the skill that you want to practice in order to work on fluency. So it's just misguidance. And then because the education system used to be geared for 65% of our students, the other kids we call outcasts, we call behavioral problems, or we call difficult learners. Now it's the pyramid is inverted.
Mm.
Our education system is not working for 65 or 70% of our students. And so even when you talk about the MTSS pyramid, it's inverted.
Mhm.
Most kids are at the top level. The problem that's going to be is that you start looking at our whatever you want to say workforce or what makes us America or what makes us stronghold or what makes us have productive citizens. What you're going to have are the have and have nots. You're going to have people that are able to be reskilled. They're able to critically think and apply and be creative. And then you have the have nots. Even if you look at urban schools, and you start looking at integrating technology, most urban schools only use technologies of point and click and gaming, where affluent schools use technology for creating, for search of information, and all those kind of things. As a matter of fact, I mean, I, I get tired of students asking me simple questions, like they can just look up or just even talk to their phone, and it will give them the information. They don't even know how to utilize technology in that sense, and so it's a problem.
Well, and I feel like you've taken this and you're now practicing what you preach, right? You talk about jobs that we don't even know that are going to exist yet because they're going to be replaced by technology and we have to have certain skills. What you've done with the classroom is you've now utilized technology to not necessarily take away the job, but to enhance the job of our educators and our teachers, right? You say
Right,
that we've been doing this ineffectively or maybe even wrong for more than a generation now. And
right,
as a result, we've got a generation of functionally illiterate kids that don't know how to critically read, comprehend, and do a bunch of things because they didn't get the foundation. We
right.
could go in and we could redesign institutions of higher learning for all of our new teachers. So all of them understand the foundations of reading, and then all of them know how to assess reading so they can provide the appropriate interventions. We could redesign the entire school day so that teachers have the time to do all of those one-on-one assessments with every single kid every single day, but then that's all teachers are going to do all day, every day. And it's no
Just
longer
sense.
efficient or effective.
Right.
So your tool is a stand beside the educator. It's not a replacement, it's a stand beside to help them do the things that they know they should be doing. Is that what's happening here with Playbook?
Oh, you said everything very correctly. No, I mean seriously, like remember that I did everything in education, and
Yep.
so I'm not just a technology geek, which I am a technology geek, who just developed a tool because I had a great idea or my experience in school. And so, yes, one of the things that I know is important is that time is very valuable to teachers, and once you lose it, you can't get it back. The same thing with our students because they're losing valuable time in classrooms every day. And so, yeah, I want to create a tool that supports the teachers and not inhibit them from doing their work of intervening and teaching, where we are more of a informative assessment. And so we inform your core instruction. Most tools like mine are built in isolation of the curriculum
Mhm.
and built in isolation what goes on in the classroom. So that adds another problem. That's why teachers say, you're just giving me another thing to do. You're piling on something that's different where we fit like a puzzle with the core curriculum. And by the way, our assessments and information is we have all the activities, we have verbal assessments and all those kind of things. But even at the core basis, every time a student picks up the read, we are assessing that student every second, every day, every minute. We give real time feedback.
Mhm.
The other issue that I have with our school systems is that I work for Oracle, so trust me, I understand data science. I understand data sense and all those kind of things, data intelligence, business intelligence. Um, we actually, as an education system, we sit on more data than a Fortune 500 company, and
Mhm.
we only use it to record history.
Mhm.
Where everyone else, they understand their customer, they understand what their customer is doing all the way down to the T. And I know this because I can walk into school and things show up on my phone, and all of a sudden I want to buy it. I mean, walk into a store,
Mhm.
things show up on my phone, I just want to buy it, and I don't know why. Like it's like they know customer behavior down to a science. But yet in the school system, we do, first of all, we have to realize that the students are our customers. It's
Mhm.
not the adults, it's not the teachers. And so it's we never put the needs of kids over the needs of adults. Like that, I mean, never put the needs of adults over the needs of kids. That's the first thing we have to realize. But the second thing is that our customers are our students and our parents.
Mhm.
And so we need to understand the behaviors of our students and be able to provide them what they need, what they desire, what they want to be able to motivate them to exceed to their full potential. And we don't use data like that. Where we have smart dashboards. And so we take away from the fact that you have to be a data scientist in order to understand big data. Where we constantly on all our dashboards, if you hover over them, we're verbally giving you information. We're summarizing for you. We give you smart insights and snapshots all the time, talking about trend data. We're doing all those things for you, the same thing in Oracle or any other company where they're using data and those data are giving them smart insights and real time information so that they can make decisions. That's what we're doing at all levels, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's making decisions financially, understanding business, I mean, building and grounds, which has a lot to do with instruction and how students are learning, understanding resources and how to allocate your resources and all those kind of things. We provide that information because we're saying, hey, district wide, your students are struggling in this area, which is totally different than in Miss Jane's classroom, the students are struggling. And
Mhm.
so, as a superintendent, this is where I need to put my resources in order to help support students.
That's good. It's about using data to enhance and to determine what's next, not just to slap a label on something. And I think that's why data has become this dirty four-letter word in schools because so many people feel like it's something that's done to them as opposed to something that they can use. Which is why
Right,
we have educators that believe you're supposed to call an assessment formative or summative, like you can only use some of it. But you're saying, no, no,
right,
no, we're going to collect data every moment and we're going to show you what the kid is doing right now. So it's documented, and then you can do something with it, and you're
right,
helping teachers find that efficiency so that they can then be effective, which I
right,
absolutely love. Love it.
right. It's the same thing. Like, I mean, how do you know how to differentiate instruction? For instance, who told us that let's say a 45-minute block of reading a day, not saying that that's inappropriate, but what if I'm a student that needs 47 minutes
Right, right,
and you close the book up and you move the math? Or what if I'm a student that needs 10 minutes?
right.
I gotta sit and be bored the rest of the time with the rest of how does that work? And so because we have such a we now have such a vast amount of differences within our classroom. How do we meet the needs of all students real time? How do
Mhm.
we group students real time? And therefore, if I'm doing small groups with a student, most of the time you have to sit there and have the student read and do activities in front of you before you know where the problems are. No, when the students come to your group, we will already group them for you. But if you want to group the students, when they come to your group real time, we'll tell you exactly what they just did and where they're lacking.
It's good. So let me kind of say something kind of blunt here. Hopefully, people will register with this. Around the world today, when educators hear AI, they immediately think, oh no, that means kids are going to cheat because they have an AI tool that they can use. This is an AI tool for educators. Are you making it easy for teachers just to take the easy out and not have to do the hard work? or are you actually assisting them and helping them?
I'm assisting them and helping them. And yes, I'm making it easy for educators. So yes,
Yeah,
so they won't have to do the hard work. So yes, I mean, what does
that
hard
could be
work
a yes
mean?
and,
What?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like what? Like why is that a bad thing? Like that's not a dirty thing because what I want to do is be able to have them do their passion and love, and that is instructing and intervening and helping students. And there's so many things that prevent that from happening. If you don't see, even let's just say, okay, so I've been in a district, and this is I'm saying this year I worked with a district that had, and I'm not exaggerating at all. Throughout the whole district, had high school, middle school, and elementary buildings. 3 certified teachers total in every building.
Hmm.
That's just a fact. They legally they have to have bodies, so they have full-time subs, or they will have no teachers for these students. So we know that there's a national teacher shortage. We know that in certain communities there's even more of a teacher shortage, meaning that in some states it's not necessarily a teacher shortage, but the teachers choose to only work in the suburban districts, and
Hmm.
they will choose not to work at all and wait in line for somebody to leave that district, which that rarely happens, than to go to other districts. So regardless, let's say, but there's a teacher shortage. Well, how can I? This is still a competent adult because a lot of times it's someone with a degree that just didn't go to education. This is a competent adult, and they can read and they can give instruction based off uh, a teacher guide or a curriculum. But what that curriculum doesn't tell you is what happens when a student goes off. Then what am I supposed to do?
Right.
That's the real issue of, I mean, that's the real beauty of training, right? Like a expert reading expert is, they're not a reading expert because they're given instruction, is that when a student goes wrong, man, they know what to do and intervene. Well, that's the hard work, if you want to say, or all those questions you asked earlier. That's the hard work that we want to take away from a teacher. We know that you can give instruction, and we know that you can go back and say, okay, this student is lacking, I don't know, blending or segmenting or whatever that is. And then we can tell you exactly align with your curriculum. And then you can reteach that, or you can re-go. And then it feels better. Then you understand to give that student what they need, as opposed to just going through the curriculum. I have to teach A through B. And
Hmm.
and these students are going off, and guess what? You didn't catch up. That's all on you. And then boom, we only meet 5% of our students, and,
Yeah.
and the rest of them are off.
Again, you're speaking to me. I used to have a role similar to yours. I was an assistant superintendent up in Michigan, and one of my responsibilities was to stand beside my teachers and make sure that they understood what the curriculum looked like and the standards and resources. So I would come up beside them and I'd say, you know what, I'm going to help you. I'm going to create this amazing scope and sequence that's going to have everything outlined for you. It's going to be mapped out and it's going to be perfect. And I'm going to show you how to capture every single standard throughout the course of the year. It was a beautiful document that when teachers utilized to fidelity, worked for them for about a week. And then come Friday, they're like, okay, but some of my kids are there and some of my kids aren't there. And now I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to put my head down and keep plowing forward and end up leaving a
Right,
bunch of kids behind. What
right.
you're telling me is that wherever those stop points are, whenever kids are being assessed, teachers are getting a real-time playbook where they're saying, we know what the defense looks like. Now we can adjust and we can make sure that we have the right play called for each individual kid to move them forward. Is that what you're telling me? That sounds too good to
Amen.
be
Like
true.
that's maximum comprehension right there. Amen.
That's all
Like
right.
like
This
yeah.
this
So
does sound too good to be true. This sounds
yeah.
incredible.
Well, what we devised it was like a GPS. So the problem is, just like you just described, a student is going down a learning journey. If they make a left and they're supposed to make a right, we don't catch them until they're miles down the wrong road. And the problem is, we not only have to miraculously catch them up to the beginning part, but then we also have to catch them up to the students that are on the right path. The
Yeah.
reason that would be easy if it was one student. The reason it doesn't happen is because it's many students that get off path at different areas. We don't know when everybody's getting off path. And so unless you had real-time feedback, unless you had a tool that can say, and then also provide an alternative path to still have that student at, hey, at 3 o'clock, theoretical, 3 o'clock, if we're supposed to meet at the White House at 3 o'clock, well, I don't care what route you took, but the whole point is we want to get you there to the right spot
Mm-hmm.
at 3 o'clock. And so that's what we have a GPS. So by grade level standards, we want to be able to get you here, and that's what we do.
Oh, it's so good. So good. Now, in a perfect world, it sounds like this would be something that educators would have on hand their first day in the classroom at the start of a school year, and they would continue to jump in. But is this something that, regardless of when they get access, they can start plugging and playing, for lack of a better term? That if it's October, November, December, April, it's better late than never.
Yeah, and so the difference is what you're referring to is like benchmarking and
Yeah.
grade level. Yeah, but the science of reading actually says that the problem is that there's holes in the foundation.
Mm.
And so the kids kind of look like a Swiss cheese effect. So they're getting instruction, but when they miss certain parts, again, if they go off course and we just keep plowing forward, they're going to catch some and miss some. So they have
Mm-hmm.
holes in their foundation. Though that obviously, if you look at water, going through holes, it's going to keep going through. So we have to figure out how to plug those holes. So it's as simple as it doesn't matter what time period you get that student. First, you have to identify those holes, and then that instruction, and then that starts to kick in, and then they have a solid foundation. Once they have that solid foundation, then it's a matter of exposure. And we have a large library. We so technically we have over 1,000 books in the library, but when I say large is because we also use AI, and it's a patent that we have, that's called a text complexifier. So we actually can take any book.
All right, you need to say that term 3 times fast for me.
Text complexifier. So we
That's
can,
fun. Okay.
instead of simplification, so we can take any text and we can actually, like, if you have let's say if you're a third grader, you want to read about astronauts, you only have that book in fifth grade. We could take that fifth grade book and make it all the way down to first grade
Hmm.
content. I mean, we don't change the content, but we change
Grade level. Yeah.
the grade level, and then we can take it all the way up to about eighth or ninth grade. And so therefore we're a traditional setting. You have one book of this topic, and that's it. Where we can take that book and we can give it to every student, and so that increases our library substantially. And then any book that you give us that's digital, we can do the same using AI, and then adjust the text to where it's not too hard for you, where you're frustrated, and it's not too easy where you're bored. It puts it right at your readability level.
That's legit.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, I know this episode right now is not supposed to be like this big sales pitch, but I'm buying what you're selling, man. Like I'm in on this. So I want you to imagine right now that all the listeners they're on the edge of their seat. They're either driving right now, going to work, or come back from a vacation, or they're falling asleep. But they're intrigued, and we've got them on the edge of their seat where they're like, okay, but how? How do I get this? What do I do? Like, what's the next step for this? So
Right.
can you solve that for them? They're
Yeah.
hungry. Feed them.
We're around the United States. Unfortunately, not unfortunately in a sense, but we are direct to business, so we go direct to school districts. Pretty soon, we'll have a model where we have a subscription model direct to consumers, just a normal parent that
Mm-hmm.
wants it for their. And so you have to go to www.playbookeducation.com. So playbook, that's PLABOOK education.com.
Awesome. And I'm going to have all that stuff down in the show notes for everybody. So playbookeducation.com, you'll be able to find the stuff and click around and learn a lot. And then if you're a parent, if you're not connected with a local school district, you can start talking to your local school district, start talking to your administrator, start talking to your teachers, let them know about this amazing tool, encourage them to go explore, and then share this episode with them if they really need to be sold on the power behind this. But
Yes,
if
sir.
they do need one more sales pitch, Dr. Phil, imagine that you've got everybody now that's listening, and you got that mic in your hand. They know you're about to just drop it and walk off the stage and just leave them in awe. And you need to let them know what the problem is, what the solution is, what's going on in America's schools today, and what we can do about it. Say something and drop that mic for us.
Yeah, I just have to say that reading is so important to the future of our students. And we have to stop educating kids for our past and start educating kids for their future. And so the combination of reading and technology, there's only 5 ways to teach reading. And it's not, even though we believe that it has to do with print, it's not just print. It's obviously reading fluency, phonemic awareness, phonics, comprehension, and vocabulary. And so anything that's meeting the students where they're at. This is our true digital native population. These kids are born with a phone in their hand. I've seen it at the grocery stores where infants are navigating through a video on a phone or something like that. So these are our true digital natives. So we can't run away from using technology to be able to reach our students. I think that's important, and I think we have to question the traditional methods and all the tools that we have out there. A lot of our textbook companies are old dinosaurs. They're married to their technology and they're married to their tools, and so they keep selling them to school districts, and we're not getting the results that we need. And there's just common sense factors like, why are we just assessing a child reading and choosing multiple choice questions? Or why, even at the elementary level, at the preschool level, we have tools that says, this is the letter A. Can you say the letter A? The A makes the A sound. Wait a minute, the student never said it. How do we know if the student got it or not? Like all you did was just say something to the student. And so the science of reading says the student has to practice. They have to. We have to look at skill based, looking at building and assessing the foundational skills of reading, and then obviously continual practice. And so those are just some of the things that I if if you like what I said, get on your school district to purchase playbook. We actually have a parent dashboard as well. So we hide no information. If your school district have it, you have it as a parent. You can assign readings and activities to your student in that aspect,
Hmm.
and you can see the real time assessments, what goes on in the classroom, what goes on at home, and then it's gamified. So there's games that the reward system that students have. There's different games and all those kind of things. So it's not just some boring assessment. It's not just some boring aspect of a student reading. There's all kind of ways we hit different modalities of a student learning. But again, if your school district has it, as a parent, you have access to it as well. And it's just like if you had a subscription model and you bought it yourself.
So good. So good. So share this information, share the websites, get it out there into the schools, into your school, into your kids' school, and help change a generation. Help break that pipeline and get ourselves a country that's filled with readers, filled with learners, filled with kids out there changing the world. Dr. Phil, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the work that you've done, the work you continue to do, how you are out there searching for solutions, not just peddling the problems, man. You're doing God's work, you're doing the right work, and keep doing it, man.
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me on this show, and hopefully we can help some of your listeners.